joining us for this Hume Brophy webinar on sustainable aviation fuel. We have a fascinating conversation for you today with Søren Gade, who is, as you will be well aware, the Rapporteur in the Transport Committee for the file. Søren, there's been a lot of activity on this file. You've had quite a few shadows meetings already. We know that there was one yesterday. Now, I know that you won't be able to give us the full details of what's currently being discussed, but I hope you will be able to share at least a couple of insights. Just before we start, can I please just remind everyone that the Q&A tool is open, so please do give us your questions as the conversation progresses, and I will try and get through all of them in the time that we have available to us. Now, Søren, can I just ask a fundamental question, in my view, around where are we going with the definition of what is a sustainable aviation fuel? I feel that sort of underpins the entire project that you and your colleagues are trying to achieve with this file. And so maybe we could start with that. What, in your view, and in the discussions you're having, will end up being a sustainable aviation fuel?
Thank you. Well, I'll come back to that. That's really the key question, and I have, prepared myself on that as well. First of all, good afternoon to all of you, and of course, thank you very much for inviting me today. I can see from the list, I can't see the faces of you, but I can see from the list that I've met quite a few of you already, and I'm very pleased that you are still following the work that's going on in the Parliament. So nice to say hello to those I've met, and nice to meet the rest of you new people. As rightly said, we are now negotiating the file in the Parliament, trying to find the Parliament's position on ReFuel aviation. We had our second shadow meetings yesterday, and we also have had a technical meeting where, maybe things can be discussed and agreed upon before we go to the shadow meetings. It's still our plan to vote in the TRAN committee in June, and hopefully to go to the plenary for the mandate to trilogues in July. Having said that, of course, after the last meeting, it might be difficult, but it's still my plan doing so. If I say the negotiations are going good, it might be an acceleration. If I said they were going back, that would be the same. But to be honest, there are some bumps on the roads, and I think we need a couple of more meetings before I can see a kind of compromise. There are obvious some very sensitive aspects to this report. I'll come back to this in a second. But I trust that we can find a rather broad compromise under certain circumstances. Of course, I cannot, refer to any political groups what they have said, but of course we will have a discussion, and I will answer as best as I can on your questions, so you also get a feeling what is going on. So I can give a kind of overview before we go to the questions. Now, as you already know, ITRE and ENVI have made an opinion on this file, and you might even have seen it. And it is under the so-called Rule 57, which means that they can table amendments to plenary if they don't like the text agreed upon in the Transport Committee. And that is very important just to remember that if they don't like the text agreed in the Transport Committee, they can table amendments. As I see it, we have three major compromises to land in order to find a majority. First of all, and rightly said in the beginning, the SAF definition. And I must say that we had a tough agenda yesterday, and the only point we did not start was the SAF definition, and that was due to the fact that we were close to closing time, and it will take quite some time. Now, the SAF definition is very vital and important in many ways. We also refer to it as the feedstock base, and it is not secret if you read the opinion of ENVI and ITRE. They have taken a much more restrictive approach than many members in the TRAN committee, saying that they want to narrow the feedstock base, and in TRAN you have members who want to broaden up the feedstock base. This is why it will be one of the more difficult compromises to land, because if we find a compromise in TRAN that the two other committees don't like, we take the risk that they will table plenary amendments on the matter, and we might end up with a rather restrictive feedstock base that can potentially make this transition much more expensive for the industry and therefore also for passengers. I'm not saying that everybody is going to follow what will be tabled from the ENVI and ITRE. I'm just saying there's a risk that they might get it their way, and then we end up in a totally different position than the one I really want to end up with. So there's also some tactical issues on this one. Should I go all the way and get it as broad as possible, knowing that we will end in another place, far from that position, or should I try to find it in between so they will not be satisfied, but they will not table amendments? That is what I'm thinking about right now. There is also another issue, and this is the issue on book and claim. Now, ITRE and ENVI does not propose this in their opinions. I've proposed what you can call a so-called flexible mechanism, which does allow for some flexibility for fuel suppliers in a period of time. We are, of course, discussing other elements of book and claim and how to strengthen this, but it remains to be seen where there is a majority on this issue. Lastly, of course, there is the blended mandate itself. This is, in my view, very much linked to the feedstock base and need to be tackled along with the feedstock base. If we have more feedstock, we might be able to have a higher blending mandate. If not, I don't see the possibility to impose a higher blended mandate. I try to be pragmatic on all three issues. For me, it is the most important thing to find a majority behind a compromise that serves the industry and passengers well, and we do what it's also meant for, to decarbonize the aviation industry. Now, lastly, let me say a few words on the SAF allowance. I have proposed to compensate the price difference for airlines between SAF and conventional fuels by granting ETS allowances. Yesterday in ENVI, this approach was approved. And to be honest with you, I think that was quite a victory, as we need to protect the competitiveness of EU hubs and long hauls. And I think everybody agreed that that is the way to go, even though there are still resistance, but there will be a broad majority for that in the Parliament. Now, I think I'll leave it to that. I could speak more, but I'm looking forward to hearing your questions. And if you have some views, and we have time to discuss it now. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Søren, for that very insightful introduction. I must say it is a difficult act to follow when you have so deftly hit upon all of the various speaking points that I'd written down for myself in terms of the main challenges that are being faced by the aviation industry in this file. Talking about what you just mentioned in terms of the price difference in particular, and again, that is very much linked to the availability of various different types of sustainable aviation fuels across Europe, which introduce a geographical element to this conundrum as well. Could you maybe give us a bit more of an insight into how this is currently being discussed within the Transport Committee? We know that there are, obviously differences in availability and in planned projects across the region. How is this being dealt with or taken into account?
Yeah, good question. I mean, you have some who want a higher national mandate or blending mandates. I'm opposed to that, and there will be no majority neither in the parliament nor in the council. And there are still some countries that really pursue this issue. I will do what I can not to go down that road, because this is also about having a level playing field in Europe in aviation. So we do one blending mandate for Europe. It will be on scientific advice. So we do not have a blending mandate that cannot be fulfilled. It will be an obligation on the fuel supplier. And those countries who over and over again talk about higher national mandates, they can do all the voluntary agreements they want. Companies can do all the voluntary agreements they want with suppliers, but there will be only one binding blending mandate if it's up to me. So those countries, I mean, some will say, we are better than our competitors. I don't think there will be a lot, because let's just face it, when you go for your ticket, price will also mean something. But I'm not going to that. Countries can decide themselves. There are rules for how they can do state aid if they want to open up for that. But hopefully there will only be one blending mandate, and then the rest will be voluntary. If not, then all the rich countries in the world, in the north, they will just buy whatever it is. And at the end of the day, there is exactly as much SAF that is there. And CO2 emissions knows no borders. And at the end of the day, after 1 year, you will see that the prices will just go up. But at the end of the day, you'll use exactly the same amount of SAF, having a binding mandate, or you just let it be free to the member states to buy what they want. And as I said in the beginning, if you read the text of this file, this is ensuring a level playing field for sustainable air transport. And that is, for me, very important. We have internal markets in the European Union, and we want it to work, and we want a level playing field. That this is also what this file is about.
Thank you very much, Søren. That was very comprehensive. I think sticking with that, you mentioned as well in your introduction the allowances. Obviously, we saw yesterday the vote, as you mentioned. Has there been any other discussion around the price difference issue between kerosene and sustainable aviation fuels? And again, this would also have a geographical element, with Central European and Eastern countries may be more affected than, as you mentioned, the rich North. Has any sort of other price mechanism been discussed?
Yeah, that when we start, after this has been into trilogue and we start, using SAF, of course, there will be a limited amount of SAF in the beginning. I don't believe that it's wise to demand that you have SAF in all airports. At the end of the period of time, you will have SAF, and you'll only have one, kind of aviation fuel. But in the beginning, I mean, as long as the amount of SAF is 8, if it ends up in 8% or 7 or 6 or 10, the most important thing is that all the aviation fuel we use in Europe, the percentage should be the right one. And it would be stupid to take, SAF to, I don't know, the Canary Islands or whatever it is, if it's a scarce resource, and then you use more fuel to put it there because for some reason you want it to happen for the very first day. That doesn't make sense at all. If you look into competition, of course you have is it 6 or 8% of all planes leaving the Union? They stand for more than around 50% of the carbon footprint. And that's, of course, the long hauls. And we need to make sure that we don't push the citizens of Europe to go to Turkey I mean, I have nothing against Turkey, but if it's just to avoid, what we're doing in the union, that's stupid. So we need to make sure that they can still compete with other airline companies. And that is the reason why I think the allowances is where we can compensate the airline companies, because otherwise we just kill the baby with this resolution. And you will find politicians that think we fly too much. I see flying as connectivity. It's very important. It will make the world go round. I have absolutely nothing against flying. On the contrary, and I don't like the idea that it's only high-ranking officials and politicians who can afford to travel. I think Mr. and Mrs. Europe should still have the opportunity to travel and to go to holiday. I mean, it's not flying that's the enemy, but of course we have to transform and do less carbon footprint. But I mean, and that is important. But also, having said that, if you take your mobile phone and you're streaming and you stop killing your mobile phone and stop streaming, I mean, you save more CO2 carbon footprint than if you burned all the planes in the world. And if you had a single sky in Europe, you would cut off 15% of all carbon footprint from one day to another. So there's many things that could be done. This is important. I'm the rapporteur. I'll do my very best to get a compromise on this. But I'm just saying that it's not, we will not save the world either, whether we have 8, 9, or 10% out in the future. But we will do the best we can. And if there's we will have a review from the Commission every third year, and something can happen in the real world. Something can be invented, and of course, then we should revise the figures. I mean, if those who live in 2050, they will take this file and the result after the trilogue, and then start laughing, because what we end up with will not be the real deal in 2050. And that's very good, because we will be saved by the bell, because some clever scientists somewhere in the world, they will, of course, invent something that will change the way we fly, or the way we drive, or the way we live. I'm sure of that.
Thank you very much, Søren. Just on your last point there, I mean, obviously the development of technology will continue. We already know that some airframe manufacturers like Airbus are very intensely looking at hydrogen. 2035, the time horizon for the first hydrogen large passenger jet. But obviously that is only within Europe. That is not for the long haul. In terms of the distances that these kinds of technologies can conceivably reach right now. We've had a couple of questions, and I think I want to just take a moment to take one of those. This again, and you see, we keep on coming back to this, the fuel availability, the price issue is something that industry is very occupied with, as you can, well imagine. We have a first question here asking, particularly about smaller countries in the European Union that might not have all of the resources available to put in place a large SAF producing infrastructure, who maybe also only have small oil producers locally available in their region. How can they deal with what will be a price disadvantage? So it is likely that those countries that have maybe smaller airports, let's take Romania as an example, in the Bucharest airport, how can we make sure that the price per unit of sustainable aviation fuel does not increase so much that it becomes completely unviable? How do we help them create that economy of scale? Oh, you're on mute, Søren.
Sorry, good question. And I'm not saying it's solved, but it has been taken into consideration when we talk about a transition period of time and the flexibility mechanism. Because as I said, there will be no demands that there should be SAF in all airports all over Europe, because we have a limited amount of SAF, especially in the beginning. So in the beginning, you might say different kinds of fuel, but if you put it all together, it will still live up to the blending mandate. So in a period of time, you will have airports where you see no SAF because it doesn't make sense to bring it to those airports. But having more SAF in the time to come, where you have e-fuels and stuff like that, of course, at the end of the day, the fuel producers will have one kind of aviation fuel, and then you will have it in all airports. So I'm not saying I nailed it from the beginning, but I'm just saying, that's the reason why we're talking about a transition period, and we talk about flexibility mechanism. So that should solve some of those problems the question just opened up for. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Søren. There has been another question raised, again, about that competitive element, in particular, what you mentioned with Istanbul, and we're not going to pick on Istanbul as a particular airport, of course, but just that issue of the international traffic, concerns raised by some airlines that this might hurt their competitiveness vis-a-vis other non-European airlines, for example. What would your answer be to them right now?
Well, the answer would be that, first of all, it was good that ENVI actually took this opinion on you can call it free allowances, or you can call it, ETS allowances when you are tankering SAF. I mean, that's very good, because that is trying to keep the level playing field, to keep the competition. And of course, when we and I think that was a milestone, because then I can say check to that. I don't have to fight for that, because it should be in the book now. But of course, when we get closer to to plenary, and also when we have the trilogue and we have to vote on it again, I mean, rest assured that a lot of those who are have a very firm stand on a lot of things today, when they are talking to people like you, companies, flesh and blood, who can tell people what it actually means for national airline companies. We have to give in flying somewhere, or we have to get rid of a lot of our employees. I mean, that can also make a difference. So you still, as an industry, has a role to play, not only when we discuss it right now, but also when you talk to MEPs. Maybe it's not some of those you normally approach on these issues, but when we go to the final vote, I think it's still possible to move some from red to green, or from green to red, whatever it is that should be voted upon, because this is about competitiveness from the aviation industry. And if we talk about exporting carbon footprint to other countries, I mean, then this is a way to do it. If we do it wrong, then we'll just see that we will have better figures in Europe, but for the world it will be maybe even worse, because it's not all countries that will start using SAF in the beginning. And when we look upon SAF, if I just may go back to that, of course, there's also a lot of things that could be added into the SAF definition that will broaden up SAF. I mean, you can talk about solid waste, and there's a lot of things you could add if there was a majority behind it. And has also been asked, how come we cannot do the same as they do in US? But the simple reason is that in Europe, we will not accept that you put first generation bioethanol into planes. I mean, that is just to feed the airplanes with food, and that's a no-go in the European Parliament. So that's the reason why it will be stricter than the definition you use in, for example, the United States.
You raise a good point there, and I think that's a key contrast between two approaches of two major aviation regions. And I think there are benefits of each approach in terms of getting at least some SAF into the airplanes on a tighter timetable as well. Now, I think we could also look at this from the point of view of the council. And from what I've certainly seen, the council has been looking at adding things like recycled carbon to the list of permissible feedstocks. That seems to be the most likely candidate to still be added. In your estimation, do you think that this would fit under that threshold of acceptability for ITRE and ENVI Committee?
You know, it has not been decided, it's still being discussed. I went to Ghent to see the carbon capture factory at the steel company out there, and it was quite impressive. And for me, it sounds like a very good idea if you can use the carbon twice. Of course, I know how the left and the Greens see on this issue. They say if you have carbon capture and you use it into SAF, you know it's not really SAF, and you will not have the incentive to change the production way to produce steel or whatever, concrete or whatever it is. But I'm just saying I see it as a possibility, because if you can use it twice, then it's good for the environment. And it will be, maybe it's only a transition thing you can use for, and then there will be, you know, you invent something else. But it's not in yet, but I'm certainly positive to look into it. And I saw the factory, it's also given money by the European Union. I think it's up and running in first or second quarter of 2023. And it is like, I think the production was 65,000 tons of production you can use. So it is definitely on the table. But where it will end, I mean, if you ask the Greens and the left, they will say no. But I think there will be, you know, voices like me who will say that is a good idea, because otherwise we can never ever, you know, enter a figure. And I just don't get it, that you can't see if you can get twice out of one, it's better. Otherwise, you have to have one out of one, and then it's worse for the climate. Yeah.
Thanks, Søren. Another question we've just received talks about something that, again, is mentioned in the Environment and ITRE committees. Maybe we can just talk about some of those differences between the approach taken in those two committees versus what you're trying to achieve. And chiefly here is the non-CO2 effects. Now, you know, you will be very much aware that this is in a lot of ways still in its infancy, and may, you know, some say, be rather uncertain in terms of how to actually approach it.
Yeah, I will address those issues in my file, but I will do nothing about it before we have scientific facts on the table. So I will say a lot of words. I'll say it's important, we find out, we can address it, but I will not say like it is a huge problem and it should be solved tomorrow. I will say that we can urge the Commission to sit down some clever people, look into it, whether it's a problem or not, and then when there's a report, they will look into it. But I cannot avoid to have some words on it. If I don't do that, it will be tabled by ENVI and ITRE in the plenary, and as long as I'm the rapporteur, as long as I can have my hand on the steering wheel, I believe, right or wrong, that it is better. So it will be addressed, but there will come no drastic, decisions on what should be done tomorrow. But I urge the Commission to look into those problems. And then also something about, we have, of course, been in contact with the industry, you know, what can be addressed already now, or what is in it, and without, putting a lot of problems to the suppliers. I mean, we'll also put that into the file, but that will be, in accordance with advices we have got. It's nothing that I dreamt during a night and I put it in a file. So we try to do it in a way so you can manage in the real world.
Thank you very much, Søren. We've received another question, and this one is more about the politics behind a lot of this, and in particular, a question about what we saw yesterday during the ETS vote in the Environment Committee, where there was a bit of a split in some of the groups, particularly also in your group and the Renew group. Have you, as far as you can talk about this and choose to talk about it, have you seen much splitting of the vote, of debates within the groups? And obviously Renew is the one you're most familiar with.
Yes, of course. Jan Oysen and me, we have a close cooperation on these particular issues, and we look upon it in the same way. So we support each other strongly in the Renew group. And of course, you have some, you have some who have another views on this than Jan and I have. Having said that, when we get closer to, the voting, I think a lot can see that this is a way to avoid not having a level playing field. And this is not something that will go on forever, but we have to protect our aviation industry in Europe. I mean, if we do something and we can just say, hey, we close all the long hauls from Europe, because if we don't compensate or we don't do a system where it's possible to buy a ticket more or less at the same price as it was out of Ankara, but then people will go to Ankara. I mean, even though you can ask people what is the most important thing, well, that is the environment. And I think about it all the time. And then they go to Momondo and they get a ticket, and then they say, okay, you can save 1,000 euros to go to Ankara. So they go to Ankara. So we need to take that into consideration. And those also in my group, I think some will vote differently than they have said in ENVI, because they will be hopefully under pressure from you guys as well, saying, listen, you have to look into this. I mean, you have the big airline companies, doing a lot of the long hauls. You have, of course, inside the European Union. I mean, it will be competition is competition, but if you go on the long hauls, I mean, if you ask Lufthansa or KLM or SAS, or I mean, all those companies who have long hauls, I mean, they can just say, well, it's not us who's going to do it. We can take them to Ankara, and then you can just fly without staff from there. So that is not, I think people must be aware about this in the parliament.
And that brings us back to the competition element of this entire file, which is obviously a huge issue. Can I just ask again on that particular issue? There's been a lot of discussion as well about the scope of how many aircraft operators, or which aircraft operators would be in the scope of this. It seems to be that there is a general acceptance that the figure put into the proposal by the European Commission was too high. We've seen this reduced to 52 by both the ITRE and the Environment Committee. Is that something that will be followed in the Transport Committee as well?
Yeah, the figure 52 is what is on the table right now, and I think that's fair and square. I mean, we also have to look into how the Chinese and others is doing it. So this is the one. This is the figure that is being discussed right now. Where it actually ends is too early to say, but that could be, that is the one that's on the table right now, and I think for many reasons it's good. And again, when we have the final result after plenary, it's nothing that can't be changed. And that's also why I say every second or third year it should be revised, because if something happens, if there is a hole in what has been decided and it's really tough on the aviation industry in Europe, we have to change it immediately. I mean, as a European citizen, a member of European Parliament, I mean, it's unacceptable if we kill our own industry to send money and pollution out of the union. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Though I think any kind of revision would also have to be balanced with the need to keep a certain amount of predictability for both the fuel suppliers and the aviation industry in general, I would assume.
Of course, and this is the push and pull, because if you ask some of those who want to go for a very high blending mandate, they will say, we put it high as we can because then we will, there will be producers and they want to fulfill the demands. And I'm saying, listen, it's a binding mandate, so we need to make sure that the fuel producers can do what we ask them to do. So there must be a kind of, a certain amount of SAF in the market. And then you will have some who voluntarily will do more. That's very good. There will be some producers that will produce, so at the end of the day, the voluntary blending and the binding blending mandate altogether might be even higher than what we decided, and that's good for everybody. But we cannot just say that we put it sky high, rocket high, and because then we just put the prices up. I mean, if it's a scarce resource and we will come after, let's say KLM, they need a lot of SAF to fly long hauls, and suddenly they cannot oblige that blending mandate because there's not enough, so they have to buy it for a much higher price. That's not the way to do it. So we need to make sure that those who produce it will not, cannot use the possibility just to put the price up, and that is the reason why one blending mandate taking one blending mandate from the real world that can be achieved. That is what I'm going after, and that's the reason why I talk a lot with the Commission, and they talk a lot with the producers, because as an European politicians, I don't have access to a lot of scientists. The Commission have, and that's also the reason why I'm not going to question all those figures from the Commission. I have to rest on those figures. I have an idea that e-fuel should come in before the Commission have said, and that is also something I discuss with the Commission as I do with the industry. And even though it's only a little blending mandate in 2025 or whenever it's going to be from, it is still also a token that those who think about e-fuels and think about producing e-fuels, they could start production, and then the e-fuel blending mandate will be, higher in the years to come. But the transition period, as I said, is also on the table, and it's also vital for the industry. How long should it be, and how long is it fair it should be? But I think we will end up in a place where the industry can see themselves into it.
Thank you very much for that. That was very interesting. I have another question here in the Q&A. Thank you very much for submitting those. They're fascinating. Another question I have here, again, and you mentioned China just now. How have non-European airlines reacted to the discussions you're currently having, if indeed you've received questions from or comments from non-European airlines, particularly on the scope, with them being in scope for the leg out of the European Union?
My team have had a lot of meetings with the stakeholders. And we have, to be honest with you, there haven't been many contacts from the outside, so to speak. There has been one from Iceland, and you probably know it more than me. What is the problem for Iceland? That is the only, serious contact we have had. And of course, they have a problem, but whether it can be solved or not, it's too early to say, but we haven't had any contacts with, let's say, China Turkey Airlines or whatever. We have had more than 50 meetings with different stakeholders, and we have had huge gatherings where a lot of you have been all together. So it has been stakeholders from the inside, so to speak.
I think I can speak for a lot of industry representatives when I say that this process has been very transparent, and I think everyone appreciates that you and your colleagues who are involved in these discussions take the time to listen to the information that industry is providing on this. I am going to say that. Can I just ask, in terms of your predictions around how quickly this will go with the council in terms of negotiations?
I think the council is close to finalize their position, actually. So to be honest, I think it's all in the parliament. And if I look into the different political groupings, you will find some of them saying, oh, this is too fast, it's moving too fast, we need more time. And I think that's wrong. I mean, I'm not the one that could decide on my own whether we can finalize it before the summer break and go into trilogue at least one meeting before we go into the summer break. But I will do the utmost doing so, because it will not go away. I mean, it is not like, the parliament is 1 out of 3. So we should be able to have a compromise, and it will not be that compromise that will be the result at the end. As you know, we have to go into negotiations. So it is actually, they are waiting on the parliament, and that's the reason why I think we should, if not speed it up, we should make sure that we can take it into the TRAN committee for voting in June, and then take it to trilogue in plenary and trilogue in July. Yeah. So we have one meeting before the summer break in August.
An ambitious timetable, but especially with the amount of holidays coming up. But I think a reasonable one too. In terms of the mechanics around the trilogues, once you're then discussing these issues with the council, how are you going to approach the input given by the ITRE and the ENVI Rapporteurs? Have you already discussed with them how that might look in terms of the approach to the trilogues?
So ITRE and ENVI, at the meetings we have right now, they go to the shadow meeting I have with the different political groupings, but they have not. They cannot speak up in the trilogue. They have given their opinion, and of course, as I said, I have to take it into consideration to make sure that make sure that they will not kill my file when it goes into the trilogue, because they have hundreds of amendments. And of course, I listen to them when they have views to say, but I'm the rapporteur, so I can do what I want, but I'm not an idiot, and I would be an idiot if I didn't listen to what they say. If you take the council, and of course I've talked to some from the council, especially in the beginning, where you have this some in the council, they pursued this national target, higher target, and there was especially, of course, some of the representatives from the north. And then I just, I said, no, it's not going to happen if I can avoid it. And there is no majority, neither in the parliament or in the council as it is right now. There will be no national higher targets. And that has been the most key question I've discussed with representatives from the council. And then, of course, you will know it, and some are also at this meeting, that those wishes on the feedstock base, on solid waste, on trees from the north. I mean, that will be, if it cannot be solved in my report, of course, it will be maybe a position from some countries in the council, and I think that's fair and square that we end in a place where we have maybe a little more SAF and because it's good for all of us. So there should also be something to discuss in the plenary for sure. And I know that those things, I'm in contact with some of the MEPs, also from my own group, from other groups that still have something they want to be in the file, and I cannot promise them to do so. And if I don't do it, of course, they will contact the minister or the ministry from their own country, and they will come with the same demands when you go to trilogue. And I think that's fair and square. I'm just saying I need to take ENVI and ITRE into consideration when I do my report before we go into plenary.
Absolutely, and given Rule 57, as you explained at the beginning, there are very good reasons also to make sure everything's squared away before the plenary vote happens. I've just received one more Q&A question, and again, it's about something that hasn't been that prominent in the discussion so far, but has been proposed by several of your colleagues, and that is the eco-label, or strengthening the eco-label for flights. Have you had much discussions about this, also in terms of a compromise upon this issue?
Yes, I mean, we have talked about labeling, how to label the fuel. But to be honest with you, I think it has something also to do with competition and how you do your business model. Because I don't think I have to tell you, you have the figures. I mean, you can have different kind of business models, and it will, end up with different figures of CO2 carbon footprint per mileage per passenger. And I don't think we should go that way. I think the industry has a job to do, because if you look into aviation is doing much better today than you did 10, 20 years ago. And that's also a good story to tell. I mean, if you have one of the modern diesel cars, you need 2 passengers to do better than the best airline companies. So I think there are good stories to tell. But if we went on that, I mean, I know if you ask the Greens and maybe the left, they think it's a good idea. But I'm a little reluctant. I mean, I can do labels on fuel, but do it per. I mean, you will have problems. You have out of region areas where it is very important with connectivity. It's very important with airline companies serving those areas. And if they are hammered each and every year because they are flying in those areas, it would be then some people will not be connected to Europe anymore. And also, of course, it is out of scope. I mean, I could have said something about it anyway, but it is out of scope. And I think, to be honest, I think for the industry, I think that's good that it's out of scope for some of those reasons I've just said.
Thank you very much, Søren. I think we're going to move towards closing out this event at this stage. Unless anyone is furiously typing away with another Q&A question, please do get those into me. Søren, it's been an absolute pleasure discussing this with you. I know it is a very, very difficult file, lots of challenges there. And I think the amount of feedback you've had, more than 50 meetings, I think you said, plus public gatherings as well, it shows how important this file is to the aviation industry as one of the key ways in which we can hopefully reduce the environmental footprint of aviation in a positive manner. Do you have any last remarks that you would like to give to industry as you are going through this process of negotiations with your colleagues?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, as I've said, for inviting me today, and also thank you very much for all the meetings we have had. I mean, I'm not better than the input I've got, and I've got a lot, and hopefully you will see also, that you have seen in the file that I've listened to, at least some of you, and those where I couldn't, take it into account is also for political reasons. But we, as I said, there's also a way out, and it's not finalized yet. And if you in this process have any ideas, or you have any remarks, and you have anything you are afraid of where we could end, or you hear something that you think I need to know, please feel free still to write to my office. I mean, we will look into it, because it's not the end before it's the end. And if you want to help, then it's very important that you tell the MEPs, you tell your political contacts also in the council, in your national parliaments, that this is seriously business. And if it's done wrong, we will lose a lot of jobs, we will lose a lot of connectivity, and we will lose a lot of airline companies in Europe, and if it just move to the outside, it is the worst kind of carbon leakage they have ever seen. So you can help doing so everybody is very much on their toes to make sure that we get the right result after the plenary. And then I'll say thank you very much, and we will be in touch one way or another. Thank you.
Søren, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much to all participants as well. And have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Søren.